Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back. Chase Thomas podcast, taping this on a Thursday evening. First timer, locally, retired, enjoying. I don't know where Jimmy Hyams is at the moment, but he's somewhere, and he's in the darkness. He could be out on the lake right now. He could be in a cave. Nobody knows where Jimmy goes these days as a retired sports writer, sports radio guy, still on Sports Source each and every Sunday. But Jimmy, good evening, sir. How are you?
Chase, I'm doing very well. I hope you are also.
Absolutely. What have you found yourself doing the most in retirement that you would not have ever guessed beforehand?
Well, that one's hard to say. I will tell you that my day today, I played tennis at 9 a.m.,
Okay.
golf at noon, pickleball at 6.
Wow.
So that's a full day for a retired person. I've actually played pickleball twice in the last week. I played 3 times in my life.
Uh-huh.
And so that's a sport that I've really enjoyed. It's a good group of people I'm playing with, and it's been a lot of fun. So that's something that I'm trying to pick up and play a little bit more in my semi-retirement. People are like, wait a minute, I see you here and there. I'm probably about 90% retired. I've still got a few things in the fire.
I like it. Did you ever see yourself retiring? Or was it one of those things as you get older, you're like, actually, I'm kind of more into retirement than I ever thought I would be? Because I wondered about that with me.
I wanted to retire when I was 55.
Okay.
Financially and having 2 kids and expenses, I wasn't able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was preparing 2 years before I actually retired at age 67. Because, Chase, I got started full-time when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been in this profession for 51 years on a full-time basis. And I just felt like it was time. During football season, I was working 7 days a week. I was working 65 to 70 hours a week. That just got to be a little bit much for me. So I'm selective right now. I do a roundtable on Friday with the Sports Animal. I'm doing a football final show with Fawad Reves. I'm doing Sunday morning with Tim Irwin. I'm doing the Sports Source, as you mentioned. And also on Saturday mornings, Doug Matthews in Nashville. I'm doing a show with him as well.
That's still pretty busy. That's not really semi-retirement, sir. That's not 10% of retirement. I don't know if I buy that, Jimmy.
Well, okay. I don't blame you. I'm trying to stay away from the Monday to Friday stuff.
Yeah.
I did agree to do the Friday roundtable with the News Sentinel. With the Sports Animal because they got Heath Schuler on.
Okay.
And Heath and I go way back, so it's been enjoyable to do the show with him.
I love it. If you had to rank the 3 sports you played today, though, how do you rank them in terms of level of enjoyment for you?
Level of enjoyment. I just set off my phone so that I wouldn't miss this appointment. Now I can't find my phone. Level of enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
Today it was tennis because I won all 3 of my matches.
Okay.
Then secondly was pickleball. I won most of them. Golf I played really well except I couldn't make a putt. I missed 5 putts inside 5 feet.
Okay.
And I used to be a good putter. That's pretty frustrating. So I'm on the frustration level, golf took the cake today. But tennis and pickleball I played pretty well today.
Your favorite Knoxville golf course is what?
Holston Hills Country Club, which is where I'm a member. I live on the golf course. I also live on the Holston River. So it's a nice place to retire if I ever decide to do it.
Mm-hmm. Do you fish at all? You're on the river. Are you fishing at all?
I do. I don't fish much. I do fish. I'm kind of a novice at that. I don't know what bait works. So I'm out there casting, not fishing anything. And maybe I'll just go dig up some worms and fish with a cork. But I don't know what the fish are hitting right now. I'm not schooled at that. I'm not knowledgeable in that regard. I think I would have more fun if I was catching some more fish. But I just don't know what baits to use. I need to get with somebody that has some experience.
Well, you got some time. You're a retired man, Jimmy. Now is the time.
You're right.
I like it. Maybe you got Bob Hodge. That's who you need to follow around. I feel like Bob's the outdoors man. There you go.
That's
Just a weekend with Bob. Well, let's talk some Vols here, Jimmy. If I was going to ask, if I was going to look in the clairvoyant Jimmy Hyams here, and you already know what's going to happen on Saturday night in the Swamp, is Tennessee going to beat Florida in the Swamp Saturday night? If you already know the result, what does your gut tell you there?
I think Tennessee is going to beat Florida. I think it's going to be a big challenge. Look, here's the key, and it never is as simple as the way I'm going to put it, but I'm going to put it very simply. If Joe Milton plays well, Tennessee wins. If he doesn't, if he plays like he did against Austin Peay, if he can't hardly complete a pass downfield, then I don't like Tennessee's chances. I think Tennessee, the run defense is really good. Florida had, 13 yards rushing against Utah. Graham Mertz has put up a lot of yards passing, but I think Tennessee can force Florida to be one-dimensional and then put pressure on Mertz.
Yeah.
But Joe Milton has got to be effective. And if he's effective, then I think Tennessee will score 27 to 34 points, and I think that'll be enough to beat Florida. I don't think they got to get to 38 like a year ago, because I don't think Florida's offense is very good. And I also think Tennessee can run the ball effectively, but I don't think Tennessee can throw 18 of those bubble screens or quick outs against Florida. That's not. First off, Florida has better athletes than Austin Peay, and secondly, they're going to clue into that, and they're going to make it difficult for that wide receiver trying to make the block. So you've got to complete some intermediate, some deep throws, and that's where Joe Milton comes in. If he plays well, Tennessee wins. If he doesn't, there's a really good chance Florida comes away with the victory, which Tennessee hadn't won there since 2003. So it's about time Tennessee snapped that streak.
What if he's okay, though? What if Joe's just fine? Which is kind of really what he's been. I think it's just funny because, the third downs are an issue, and we saw that in Vanderbilt and Clemson. We saw it in Clemson in a big way with a lot of early 3-and-outs, and that was something that all offseason where people cited the Clemson game. I was like, it was pretty rocky. There was the big moments. There was just more deep shots. He hit Squirrel, obviously. He hit Ramel a couple times. He had the deep shots to kind of make you forget that the offense did have a lot of clunkiness to it. And we haven't really seen the tempo really put either Austin Peay or Virginia on edge the way that Hendon Hooker did. So when we talk about tempo, I'm like, that's something that I'm looking for in the first quarter is the tempo back that we saw that made it so difficult to defend all last year with Hendon Hooker, because I don't think we've really seen it yet with Joe. And part of that is just you have to hit some of these deep shots. You have to get in a rhythm early, and Tennessee has not been in a rhythm in the first quarter in either of these last two games.
Well, they scored a touchdown the first possession against Virginia, and then they went 4 consecutive possessions without a score. And that's rare for Tennessee to do that. Now, a little bit of the lack of up-tempo might be related to not having Cooper Mays at center. I thought he was really good at making quick calls, of getting the ball quickly to the official, to get it set in play, and for Tennessee to rip off a lot of plays in a short period of time. Nobody ran a faster offense in Tennessee. So they might miss him a little bit, Chase, in that regard. But you have to hit some first downs. And once you hit some first downs and you start going at warp speed, it's hard for the defense to catch up to you. Here's another thing I've noticed, and I'm going to mention 2 things. One, I thought Milton was really good against Clemson. I thought he was all right against Virginia, and then not so good against Austin Peay. He's gone the wrong direction, in my opinion, the last 3 games. So that's one factor. The other factor is this. I remember watching Tennessee a year ago. They had wide receivers running wide open against Alabama and a lot of other teams. I don't see them running wide open. I see some folks open slightly, but I don't see them just – now, there was one case where Mel Keaton had a Virginia guy beat deep and dropped the long ball. But rarely have I seen the Tennessee guys running wide open, which is interesting to me. I don't know if that means Tennessee's been holding back a little bit in their scheme and holding it for Florida. I don't know. But by golly, if you've been holding it, now's the time to unleash it.
Well, I also think, so much of the conversation was just losing Hendon Hooker, right, this offseason. And look, Hendon Hooker was awesome. But you look at the Jalen Hyatt departure, and I think that's hit Tennessee way harder than I think a lot of fans would have anticipated, because people just penciled in Squirrel and Dante Thornton. Just you get the combination of those two should be enough to replicate what Jalen Hyatt did last year. But I think Jalen Hyatt, we're learning, was actually kind of a special take the top off the defense kind of track speed guy that they don't have and that you could count on. Like Jalen Hyatt, you could count on right out of the gate for Tennessee last year, and he was just solid and virtually unguardable. And you talk about the just guys running open deep. It was Jalen Hyatt against Kentucky that was breaking coverage. It was Jalen Hyatt against Alabama. It's still too early to say Dante Thornton or Squirrel can't be that, But I think we're learning that's a big part for me, is that we focus so much on Hendon, but I think Jalen is now kind of underrated based on what we've seen for the first couple weeks, because I think he was kind of the difference maker with putting so much pressure on these defenses with what he did in the slot, and these guys just might not be as good, which is you don't get Jalen Hyatt's every year.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Now, it makes me wonder if Tennessee has not played all of its cards. Have they not run some of the routes that they use to get Hyatt open?
Yeah.
I do think Squirrel White has played well. Keaton dropped that pass against Virginia. I think he's been okay. Brew McCoy has not been the receiver I thought he would be. At least he's not been as involved in the passing game. And then Dante Thornton's been almost a no-show. He hasn't done much. That doesn't mean he won't eventually.
Yeah.
One of the things about this offense, and Dante Thornton's probably finding it out, there's a whole lot of reading to it. You've got to read what the defense is doing, and then the quarterback's got to be on the same page reading the same thing you're doing. They did that with Hendon Hooker. I'm not quite sure the receivers and Milton are on the same page. Chase, here's another thing, and my opinion, certainly I don't get to watch, I wouldn't go anyway because I'm, quote, retired. But here's the thing. If Joe Milton does not throw almost a perfect pass, it's not going to be called. If he throws it so hard that if it's a little bit low and away, it's going to be incomplete. If it's high and they're having to reach up in their fingertips, it's incomplete. If they have to reach behind them or forward, I don't see them making those catches that they did for Hendon Hooker, because Hooker threw a softer pass, a more catchable ball.
Yeah.
So I think Milton's got to be spot on with his throws. He can't be a little bit off target, or those passes are going to be incomplete.
But on the plus side, they're never going to be intercepted either, because no one's catching them. Like that's the plus there, is just it's going to hurt if you want to pick off a Joe Milton pass. I mean, that story Brew told this week about like having to turn the machine up to the highest degree to get ready to catch this. But like maybe that's a sign that this isn't going to work, or maybe we need to change some things, because that's not commonplace. I don't think in many quarterback receiver practices is having to prepare in that to that level of degree. But I think too, and this is something that I wondered and I've thought about this week, and I want to get your perspective on this, Jimmy, where I look at this game and I've gone so back and forth on this, because I think this is actually the pivotal game of the year and will tell us where Tennessee's going, because you win this game, you're looking at 5-0 against Bama, and then we're right back to where we were a year ago. You lose this game, the only way to lose this game is ugly. I don't think there's a way for Tennessee to play well and still lose this game, if that makes sense. So if they go down in Gainesville, it's because things got really ugly. We probably see the worst Heupel offensive showing through 3 years. I think we're looking at something like that based on what we've seen from this Florida team. I think it just will be the ways in which Tennessee wins. I think is a lot more than Tennessee fans are giving this team credit for. And I think Heupel deserves benefit of the doubt in a lot of these big games to this point. And I look at it, it kind of feels like LSU last year to me. That's kind of where it's at, where LSU wasn't quite ready. It was early in the Brian Kelly era. Tennessee fans were nervous and kind of penciling in the Death Valley loss of like, look, it's just asking for a lot from Heupel in year 2 to go into enemy territory, very tough place to play. Even if it was at 11 a.m., like it was still Death Valley, and this was a team that ended up winning the SEC West. And they got off to that great start with the fumble on the kickoff, and they just really jumped on LSU right out of the gate and took the air out of the building and never gave it back. I think Tennessee could very much do the same thing against Florida, and I think it's kind of where I'm headed. Like, I think if Tennessee wins this game, I think it's actually a blowout similar to what it was in LSU, because I think if it's close, that means Tennessee's having a really, really rough night, and that's just not where you want to be, because then I think that feels like the House of Horrors where they, in 2015, where they were at the last time they were favored in the Swamp and they lost by a point, with 28-27, I think. So you just don't want to be in that zone. If Tennessee wins this game, I actually think it's going to be a big, big win.
Well, it might. I see it as a close Tennessee win. The LSU thing a year ago, I covered that program, and I'm going to tell you, there is a huge difference when LSU plays at 11 a.m. versus night, Tiger Stadium. I thought that was a huge benefit for Tennessee, and I gave Tennessee a pretty good chance to win that game just because I know that LSU and their fans sleepwalk when they have an early game. Here's what I see at Florida. I don't see Tennessee blowing Florida out. I have seen some Tennessee teams that were much better than Florida, and Tennessee would go down there and lose. And I'm talking about in the last 20 years. I think this is going to be a game where Tennessee, they can get a lead, maybe 10 or 14 points, and then I think they hold on. I think that's what will happen. I don't see them extending it, and I don't know the LSU score, 40-14 or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
I don't see that happening. I think Florida kind of hangs in there. It's what they have done in the past, even when Tennessee would jump out to a lead. Now, I think the last time Tennessee played there, Josh Heupel's first year, I think Florida won 38-14. It was one of the less productive offensive showings that Tennessee has had under Heupel. But this offense should be a lot better than that. Florida's not as good. Florida, in my opinion, is a 500 team.
Yeah.
When I looked at their schedule, I went game by game. I picked them 5-7. I thought, okay, they'll probably sneak up and get one win that I don't have. So I ended up at 6-6. But personnel-wise, they're not as good. I don't think if Milton's playing well, they're not as good at quarterback. I'll take Tennessee's running back room. I'll take Tennessee's receivers room. At the line of scrimmage, I think Tennessee's better. I don't think Florida's offensive line's very good. They ran for 13 yards, I believe it was, against Utah. So everything points to Tennessee winning except the fact that Tennessee hasn't won there since 2003.
But doesn't that kind of remind you of the LSU conversation last year?
Well, no, they didn't have a streak like that against LSU.
Well, I'm not saying a streak, but it was just kind of like everything is pointing to Tennessee. They should beat LSU. Like, they should. Fans just didn't want to say we should beat LSU at LSU. Like, it was just hard to be that confident about it, even though you really should have.
Well, I didn't feel that way because I thought I think the roster's a lot better than Florida's. I thought LSU was a lot better than Florida last year with Jaden Daniels and the crew that they had. And then they went on to win the West Division and beat Alabama. So I thought the LSU team was a lot better. I didn't see it as Tennessee should win that game.
But then in that instance, then you should look at this game of like, this is a worse team than LSU that you went in and blew out last year. And I mean, obviously you don't have Jalen Hyatt and Hendon Hooker, but like, I just think Tennessee fans are scared to say, obviously because of the history there, just we all need to collectively be like, they're going to blow out Florida. Like part of this growing of the program and taking back this side of the East and like moving on from the South Carolina, the Kentuckys, and the Floridas, it's like you have to take care of business in these games. And Heupel did it last year. Got really spooky late. I was in the building for that. Jimmy, it wasn't fun for that last quarter and a half. And the Tennessee fans who got extremely confident in the second quarter, like popping Gator, little, what was it? It was like an inflatable Gator that was being passed around, and Tennessee fans were breaking it. And I was like, I think I turned to my wife and I was like, this has all the omens of just disaster. I don't know what to do here, but I have a bad feeling. And because like, it didn't matter. You could be up 30 points going in the fourth. I'm still extremely nervous about Florida, but I just felt like they got the monkey off their back last year. And I think Florida is going in the wrong direction. I think Tennessee is moving in the right direction. And I think Joe, this is like his Super Bowl. He's back in Florida. He said he doesn't lose in Florida. The best game we've seen of Joe was in Miami. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of family here. My guts tells me this is the Joe Milton breakout game. Because if it's not, I think it's a really rough showing, and then we might be looking at maybe the end of the Joe Milton era at Tennessee.
Wow. I don't see that. I don't see it being potentially the end of the Joe Milton era. I think he gets it. Well, here's the thing that we don't know. How good is Nico Iamaleava looking in practice?
Yeah.
Is he ready to take over? Has he been running the offense? Is he completing 75% of his passes in practice? I don't know that.
Yeah.
Nobody probably does. He has to be ready before you make that move. Now, I don't think Milton will play so poorly that they decide, okay, we're not going with him anymore. If Florida wins 30-27, and Milton throws for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, I don't see a change being made. But also, I just don't see Tennessee blowing Florida out based on the history. Yeah. Based on what I've seen the last 9 or 10 times that Tennessee has played there, even with the better team. Yeah. Even when at the end of the year, Tennessee ends up with a better record than Florida, they have just struggled to win in Gainesville. So that's why I think Tennessee wins, but I think it's I don't think they win by double digits. I think I've got them with a 7-point win.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's less about Joe and like what Heupel would do. That Nico chant was loud in Nashville when he entered the game. Fans know. And I was in the building 2 years ago when Joe had the rough outing against Pitt, and the Harrison Bailey chants were extremely loud. And you look at it where I'm like, Nico is an easy name to chant. Everyone knows about Nico. Everyone wants to see Nico. Everyone's kind of uneasy about Joe at this point still. I just think you're looking at UTSA the following week at home. If you're in a dogfight against UTSA and you're coming off the Florida loss, I just think this crowd, we've seen it before. It's going to get restless and you're going to hear it. And I don't know how Joe responds when that kind of pressure continues to amplify behind him. And that wouldn't even really be Joe's fault, but I'm just saying, knowing this fan base, and you've been covering the Tennessee Vols fan base for a long time, Joe loses in the Swamp and it's not a great showing, and then they're in a dogfight in the fourth quarter with UTSA, a good group of 5 team at home. You know the Boo Birds are coming, and we're looking at another just kind of uncomfortable quarterback situation. That's where I feel. It's just such a big point in the season, and it's week 3.
Well, I think it's a big point in the season too, but if you're Josh Heupel, you could care less about the boos.
Yeah.
You cannot react to that. And you might be too young to know this. When Peyton Manning was a freshman, he struggled against Memphis, and the fans started yelling for Brandon Stewart, and they were booing Peyton Manning. Okay?
That didn't age well.
What if the coaching staff had said, oh, okay, we're going to acquiesce to the fans. They want Brandon Stewart. How did that work out?
Well, hold on. What did JT Shrout do when he went in for Jarrett Garantano in the Kentucky game? It was all great, right? Oh, no, did he throw an immediate pick? Oh, that's what he did. That didn't go well.
I mean, you can't react to fans. You cannot do that as a coach. So, is it possible that it can end up in Nico's hands this year? That's possible. But I think Joe Milton's got to fall flat on his face. And by the way, I think the team responds really well to Joe Milton also. I think everyone
wants to cheer for him, right? Like, he's a great story. Yeah. He's the guy who stayed. Everyone wants to. It's just this weird. He's just on Hendon, and it's clunky, and fans are now conditioned to efficient, dominant offense, and it's just, I don't see it not being clunky. Like, I think it's going to continue to have its ups and downs.
I wrote a blog the other day that said that no coach in Tennessee history has raised the bar on offense like Josh Heupel. Nobody. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, in 2020, Tennessee was 3-7. They had trouble scoring a touchdown.
Yeah.
In some games. And now it's like, what? Virginia, 49 points and 499 yards? What's wrong with the offense?
Yeah.
Good gracious. So they've raised the bar in that regard. And I didn't expect Joe Milton to play as well as Hendon Hooker. Mm. I also don't expect him to play poorly. So we'll see where that one goes. But I do look. Hendon Hooker had arguably the greatest single season in Tennessee history. Mm-hmm. He completed almost 70% of his passes. It's a better percentage than Peyton Manning ever had. His touchdown to interception ratio was 27-2. That was a school record. Nobody had ever done that before. Mm-hmm. He also ran for 430 yards, and some of Tennessee's great quarterbacks weren't able to do that either. So it's one of the great years ever. That's why I thought they would. Here was my prediction. Mm-hmm. The offense would go from averaging 46 points to about 40. Now,
they're right there.
Now, they are in 2 games, but that Austin Peay performance makes me think, oops, I'm not sure they're going to get to 40 a game this year. So, but I expected Joe Milton to have 2 or 3 games this year where he didn't play very well. And Hendon Hooker was incredibly consistent. So one of those games was Austin Peay. So we'll see what happens in Gainesville.
I'm so excited. I'm going to be a wreck, Jimmy, on Saturday because it's a night game. And it's just the night big Tennessee games are brutal. Like the South Carolina game was just, it felt, I predicted before the year where I said Tennessee would go 10-2. They'd split Bama and Georgia and they'd lose South Carolina at late. We should not be allowed to play South Carolina late in the year, especially on the road. No part of that. And if I also was the schedule maker with the new schedule, we're moving Florida. 3rd week of the season has just been a house of horrors. You know who gets worse as the season goes on? You cited that Tennessee has finished with the better record than Florida so many times. Move that one. Let that one. Let's have Florida come to Knoxville in November. Let's do that one. Let's move this out of the September. At least move it around a little bit because that I think has been a big part of it too. It's just these early season games before Tennessee's really rolling.
Speaking of that, remember what an awesome atmosphere it was in 2001? Now, obviously, the circumstances which led to that game being played late were horrific. Mm-hmm. But that was a phenomenal game played late in the year to decide who was going to win the East Division.
Yeah.
And I remember one year, I think I'm right about this, one year when Florida actually was playing pretty good football early in the year, And then they went on to have an awful season, 4-8 or something like that. But at the time Tennessee played them, they're pretty good. At the end of the year, they were terrible.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like you. I've long favored this game being played in November.
Yeah. And now with Georgia being what they are, let's play opening weekend. Just get it out of the way. Let's just go ahead and get Georgia off the schedule. Let's get them week 1, get it over with, and then move on with our year and actually do our normal schedule. Well, Jimmy, this has been great. I appreciate you making the time this evening. What can the good folks check out from you this weekend all across Knoxville?
Well, we've got a blog that's going up, and I've been working with Dave Hooker, so it'll be on his website about Tennessee and Florida in my prediction. Also, on Friday afternoon, 4 to 5, I'll be doing the roundtable with the sports animal. 11 a.m. Saturday, Doug Matthews. I've got football finals 3:30 with Fawad Reves. Sunday morning with Tim Irwin, and then Sunday at 11 a.m. the Sports Hour. So that's all.
You got a busy
enough
weekend.
for a retired guy. Yeah.
Well, it's good. Stay safe out there. Pickleball, I've had relatives like pop their Achilles playing. Pickleball is a sneaky high injury sport, and people don't know that. I just scared you a little bit. Sorry, I did it. But pickleball is one I've been nervous about.
Well, I was thinking about this. I actually pulled a hamstring playing tennis a couple of years ago, and I went in to see the therapist, and I said, most of your clients, folks that play tennis. He said, no, pickleball.
See,
More
it's not a
injuries from
coincidence.
pickleball.
Yeah.
Right. And then he said, in part because it's typically an older person's sport. And some of the older folks don't stretch and do the things they need to prepare to play. But it is a fun sport. I've enjoyed it the last couple of times I've played. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and also the quick movements. Like you just having to quickly move, and then that's just how you pop things. And as you get older, it's just 30 and up. I'm 32, and I broke my foot after running 14 years consecutively, Jimmy, and I broke it my wedding week. Broke the navicular bone my wedding week.
Oh.
It was tough.
No, yeah, that is tough. Oh, sorry.
I mean, I'm back. I'm fine now, but let me tell you, wouldn't do that again. And had to reassess what I'm doing. So now I swim. Now I'm the guy doing laps because it's hey, father time comes for us all, Jimmy Hyams. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much for making the time. I greatly appreciate it, and we'll have to check back in again soon.
Chase, you're welcome. Appreciate it. Have a great